Hey, welcome to another episode of Wizard's World. Today we're going to look at how I made point of sale systems just using Google Sheets and Google Workspace. So, a lot of people don't know, but I'm a billiards enthusiast and I am the treasurer of a sports club for billiards in Germany. And when I took over as the treasurer, everything was done on paper and pencil. And so, uh, immediately I recognized that I needed to do something to front load work and to make it more tenable for me as an IT enthusiast. Uh, I didn't want to sit there and tally up every time somebody bought a Coke. I wanted to do it with a digital system. So I began to research and look into like some of the professional point of sale systems that were available, and they were mostly not in our budget or they had too many features. We are a smaller club based where we have membership members, and they need something simple. They needed something simple. And so I began to develop the first version of the point of sale system. And this version, the goal behind this, the design goal was to have it be almost exactly like the paper version. And this is actually the second iteration. I did a major iteration change because the first version, I found that there was, it's all trial and error for me. I'm just kind of a citizen coder, a citizen developer. And so, like, what I had done was I had made these nice little red and green buttons instead of these check boxes. And there was actually there was a minus and a plus. This just would be a plus. So if I click this number three would go to four. This is a locked sheet, so I can't do that. Maybe if I come to this one is not locked. So if I click this, you'll see that, oh, that was the mark. This feature just marks that so you can see, helps users find where they're at, where their column is. But if I click this, you can see it added one right there. This turned orange because they now owe money, and 150 is what he owes because, uh, and so the minus button was really not needed. Mostly that wasn't used, and you can just do this too. But the original sheet had a red minus button and a green plus button. So there was where there's these check boxes, there was two things before. And so there was just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these little JPEG images that floated over the cells, and there was scrolling issues when you would scroll up and down. Sometimes they wouldn't float back properly. And also there was loading issues because each one represented another TCP session that had to be stood up every time. Like you would click here, you would very viscerally see them loading one by one by one by one as those TCP sessions, I'm assuming they were TCP sessions, formed to load all those little red and green buttons, and that was just not very performant, and that triggered the next version of the book, which is the book that you're seeing right now, where there was, that feature to make a purchase, to just click these to mark it. You could make a purchase. There was also the Schließen button that would result in copying certain values from the bottom of this page. Actually, your Istbetrag is how much cash is in the register. So when you click Schließen, it asks you to count the money, and you count the money, and uh, you have Solbetrag, which is what you're supposed to have, and your Istbetrag, which is what you actually have in the. So this night there was 10 cents missing, and then it takes the Istbetrag and it moves the Istbetrag number to the next day for the starting money and that's almost exactly how the paper version worked as well. And then as I was developing this, I also started the concept of this dashboard that kind of gave you a running total of how much sales you had in a month, how many different, of the articles you sold, and then, how much that totaled to for that month. And, so there needed to be a maximum of 31 sheets. We didn't ever really use 31. It just depends on how often the counter service presses the Schließen button to determine how many you went through. But also another issue of this sheet was that it had to be swapped out. I had to go to the Clubhouse on the last day of each month and swap this out manually. And so I could see that there was, as I started to get better at doing this, my imagination started to take off, and I realized, and also Chat GPT came out, and I realized that I could make a much, I thought that I could make a much better version of this. And so we moved on to this current version that we have right now. So this current version, it has this dashboard right here. This is the main dashboard. And this, as I traveled around and I watched, I was, getting into this project, and I watched how professional point of sale systems worked when I was on a ferry and I was on an airplane, and most of them were touchscreen. And so I started building this new version. And some of the goals were that, number one, it's touchscreen, and number two, that it just carries on. It never stops. It just carries on. I don't have to come out at the end of the month. It just goes and goes and goes and goes. And so I wanted it to be, just in general, more professional than it had been previously. And also, I knew now, or I knew then when I started to develop this particular version, that performance was an issue. With the red and green, I couldn't embed too much graphics into these. So I went into this knowing those things now, and I started to build this. And so what you have here is, this is pretty tuned to our particular club, the way this works, but in general, and same thing with the paper, you needed a way to move money out of the cash register into the safe. And that's done with this Trezor button. So it asks you what your name is, and then it asks you how much money that you're going to move from the Casa stand, or the amount of money that's um, in the in the cash register. How much of that money are you going to move into the safe? And it actually forces you to do that if there's too much money in the cash register. It won't let you do your end your bartending if there's too much money, and this number will turn red when there's too much money in the cash register, so that you have to move it into the safe. Um, all those are done with functions that are made with Google Apps scripts. So this is the Trezor function, and it, you know, helps you to take cash from the cash register and move it to the safe. The Einkauf function helps you take cash from the cash register to go make a purchase. So sometimes the club offers sandwiches. Someone might need to go to the grocery store and buy bread and meat and stuff for the sandwiches for the event that they're hosting. And so that's what that one does. Start Tech and Deets is like start your bartending for the night. End Tech and Deets is end your bartending from the night. Part of the way that sports vereins work in Germany is that typically each member takes one night of counter service or bartending duty. They clean up, they handle the cash register duty. And so I have to keep this very simple because we have over 60 members that all need to be able to operate this cash register. It's not like a typical business where you might have, just the waitresses or just the cashier operating this. The entire, 60 plus people membership needs to be able to operate this. And so uh, often a Betrag brings up the sidebar, and the sidebar tracks. It lets you just get a quick rundown of what you owe without having to go to your personal buy screen. So if right now you can see on the sidebar these people all owe money, and if they want to pay, they can push the Bezahlen button, which is a pay button. And if I want to, I say I just arrived in the clubhouse, I can press the Mitgliederliste button, which is membership, and I can click my name. So with 2 clicks, I can spawn my personal buy screen, and I can buy whatever I want. I'm going to buy a Coke, and I've just purchased a Coke. Open it, go drink my Coke while I play some pool and enjoy myself. Come back, and maybe I want a beer later or something like that. And I can also click these minus buttons, and I can remove those. And every single function that's in here results in a log statement. So the log was one of the biggest features that was added um, to this version of the point of sale system. And using this log, you're going to see in a little bit how I use this log to do reports. Well, actually, to do a report, I have these categories. So sales and corrections and Trezor. And so one report I might need to produce is just how much money was deposited into the safe, and I can filter on that. I can filter on a year. And so for the year, I can run a report that shows how much money was put into the safe. And then we can just really quickly run a report on the bank account to make sure all the money that was put in the safe got put into the bank account. So it's a huge upgrade over the previous version to have the logging. And the logging, provides a lot more than just that kind of functionality. But you can also build filter views and have those preset filter views that you can very easily go in there and see what's going on with the cache or with the register in general. Yeah, so you can see here he is a guest, so this particular €7 tab that's open right now was made using this guest button, and if you push the guest button, it doesn't give you a list of members. It lets you type your name in, and then it appends guests to your name, and these are in alphabetical order. So you can see very quickly the orange ones are the guests, the white ones are the members, and that can help you when you're helping the guests to pay, because the guests don't typically know how to use the register. We don't train them, but everybody in the clubhouse could assist a guest with checking out. And so yeah, that's basically. There's some more stuff to this, but in the spirit of keeping this video kind of short, uh, you know, we'll keep going. And so uh, app script, when you click the app script, you can see this is where all of the functions are defined that run this point of sale system. And this particular one lets you see you can Vorstand means the board of directors basically, and this is for removing money from the safe or adjusting the fluctuating price of one item in the you can adjust the variable item. So that might be, maybe we have a bigger plate of food for an event and they need it to be €7, but the next time they need it to be €8. And that just simplified being able to change the prices. And, that's one of the things that's a weakness of this particular version is changing and editing prices. I'm the one that designed this, and so I'm the one that kind of has to do that. It's not very difficult for me, but it would be impossible to add new items and change new items, and that's one of the weaknesses of this point of sale system. And so this is the board of directors dashboard for the club, and you can see here, and there are permission issues. That's another weakness of this current version of the point of sale system. That particular Vorstand screen that I just showed should all be in here. None of that should be over there. It should all be here because those are Vorstand only items. But at the time of when I built this, I didn't really understand the full concepts of everybody's going to use kind of a service account. Everybody's going to use shared accounts. And I had trouble understanding how the permissions should work. But so on this dashboard, you get all kinds of graphics that are based on the logs. You can see, your sales. What are you selling the most of? So right here, you're selling 15.1% is Hefeweizen. So the beer sales, the regular Coke sales, the Bitburger sales. And I don't know if that's cash. That's cash. So how much cash have you sold? And so using the log, which actually the log actually exists in the other book, but then I've um, reached out to it in this book. So I've linked it. I've linked the log, so the log should not be in that other book. But those are issues that I didn't know, and now I'm learning how to deal with those. So in the next version, there's a high potential that I can make even a much better solution than this. But you can see the sales. There's actually an inventory, which we don't use because it adds a lot of operating and administrative overhead. You can see if there was less money than there should have been. You can see how much sometimes people They owe 5 and they pay 6 just to give the clubhouse a donation. You can see that there's been 3,149 sales since the inception. Um, you can again see how much money is in the treasury. By interactions, you can see when, hey, I want to go on Friday or Saturday because there's other people there all the time on Friday and Saturday. That's the busiest time of, those are the busiest days. And if you come down here, the busiest hour is the 1900 hour. So you know when there's going to be people, when you can go down there and you can get a game, and you can actually, like, if we were using the Lager Bestand, which is the inventory, we could actually publish this, just this one chart. Could click this publish button, and then it would be available on the web. And then we could do ordering based on, what level something was at. But also, we can predict now how many Cokes we're going to sell in a month. For many months it was about 100, and then uh, now we're you know getting over 100. And you know you can kind of do all kinds of different stuff, and this is just the tip of the iceberg, and some of these have a tendency to break. So in the future, in the next iteration, I want to build these really carefully and construct the log in a very serialized way that these will never break, and they can just continue on. So this is the dashboard that lets you see kind of how everything is going. And then some of the features, for that I put into this thing besides the inventory that I had to shut off was we had a we have a receipt system that would email them, but it was deemed too unwieldy, so we turned this off. But basically, when people would click to pay, it would say, you owe this much. How much do you want to pay? And then it would say, do you want a receipt? Yes or no. And then you would need to put in your email address, and then it would email you this receipt. And we turned that off because that just added too much to the pay, um, the pay function. And then this is the next version. So uh, one place that I struggle is with the design elements. And so we actually have a graphic designer as one of our members in the club, and this is based on his design. But this is the version that this is not a complete version yet. And some of what I want to show here is that the permission issues. So the permission issues when everyone is using a service account is the way that I kind of thought about for a while and finally landed on to fix it is with a data bridge. When you look at spreadsheets, they're a visualization of a database, and so I love spreadsheets, by the way. But so what I landed on was you have an administrative console and you have an operation console, and then you have the concept of a data bridge, another whole workbook that has various sheets inside of it. And the administrative console, the administrative account, has full access to read and write to the operational console, to read and write to the data bridge, but the operational console can only write to the data bridge. So yeah, I can see this. This should be a one-way arrow. So I see that that is like this. He can read and write to the operational console. And this one should be a one-way arrow as well. So that's kind of how I resolve the permission issues. So there's a middle data bridge book where the log is, and the administrative console reads the log from the data bridge. The operational console writes the log from the data bridge. The administrative console writes settings to the operational console. And so this would be the operational console in the next version. And, one of the main goals is to kind of like move away from those graphical buttons that cause, load time delays. And one of the challenges is the design piece of it. I've been really agonizing over the design, trying to get every, buffer just right. And I end up reshaping columns, and just I really struggle with the design piece, and it was ultimately kind of the design piece that made me kind of stop because as I was building this, I was like, with the goal of making it more performant, um, uh, I wondered if it actually would be more performant. Would I put in all this effort and then it's just slow? So I had to I got kind of down about it. I was building and I was designing things, and you know, fix the permission issues. This part here is the administrative console, and this since there is no log yet, the I haven't made any of the visualizations, but I spent the most time building this, and I realize it's not the visualization. Like I say, I struggle with the visualization with the design piece of it, but basically, this will be a huge improvement over the previous version because this will be portable. It won't be just limited to the club where I'm at. There will be a setup function that fills out all of these. There is a setup function called the initial business setup function that lets you come through and fill out all the important things about your business, and then it also creates the folder structure and brings in the the folder IDs or file IDs for all the different pieces of the application. And that's critical because instead of doing a constant lookup of those all the time, they're just defined right here and it knows exactly where to find the folder IDs and the file IDs for the different pieces like the logo. If somebody puts their logo in the folder, it will detect the logos in the folder, so that it can add those to the sheet and make a custom point of sale solution. And then once you've done your initial business setup, you do your initial item setup, and it walks you through a process of adding the different items and their prices. And so one of the weaknesses of the current system that I showed before this was that, it is difficult. I would need to go in and add the item, but this new system just has this process, and you can just actually add an item right here. I believe I stopped developing this a while back, but so I just added this item, and let's come to the operational console and let's go to the app script, which is right here. And we're going to run so on this version, it's dynamically builds the buy screen. And that allows that uh, function that let me do the initial item setup. There it was. So it dynamically built this screen and it is organizing the screen based on the colors. Uh, so you can group things together and then you can push one of these, and it didn't have a name there, so but it allows that to be purchased under one of the names here. And you can see um, there only needs to be 4 buttons on this. So that's kind of the next version. I was struggling. I need this motif for this design. This is just stays in the background. You still have to have these, but they aren't. You don't have to go to those. It doesn't switch to them. Those just get spawned, and yeah, those just get spawned. But the checkboxes are designed to, yeah, it's not fully built out yet. But anyways, what do you guys think about these point of sale systems? Should I keep building this new version? Does anybody want to help? I feel like these could be useful for any small business that's a cash only business. It could be useful for a school that's doing a fundraiser, or, you know, um, could be useful to a lot of small businesses that don't want to buy a point of sale solution and they don't want something that's really unwieldy and heavy. Anyways, hope you guys have learned something. Let me know if you have any feedback. Feedback is always welcome, and keep on trucking. Thanks, guys. Bye.